I want to fit in this last question, so let's go for Olivia Rutherford. There you are.
Is the Australian government's proposal to ban under-16s from social media the best approach for protecting young people's mental health and safety, and should the UK follow?
Right, so what the Australian government is proposing, I mean, it's pretty radical, is that it would introduce legislation, it's yet to be debated in Parliament, but introduce legislation which would mean that anyone under 16 cannot access social media, or not lawfully anyway, and the sanction would be not on young people and not on the parents, but on the tech companies. They would be the ones who would be held responsible for making sure that the age verification was in place so that under 16s do not access it, and that includes TikTok, Facebook, Insta, you name it. It's the whole kit and caboodle. Now, when I saw this question, I was intrigued, Olivia, and I had a little chat with you before the programme, and you're what, in your 20s, I think?
I'm 26.
26, and you don't have a smartphone?
Yeah.
And why is that?
So I made a conscious decision not to have a smartphone about 6 months ago now. I was really concerned about my use of technology. It was dominating my life. You know, you've got notifications left, right and centre, and you only have to turn to newspapers to find people saying that they want to detox from their digital life. But specifically why I chose was just I was exhausted from overload of information. So I'm just, in my question here, thinking about young people, and I'm thinking these are young brains, and brain chemistry is very sensitive to digital devices. We've got a lot of parents at the shop I work at coming in, very exasperated, they can't get their children off the phones. We've got the issue of safety, but we've most importantly got the issue of mental health. What are they seeing online? And that point of comparison. I mean, we're all in the audience here, I'm sure we've got families and loved ones, and we're in a society that's increasingly feeling divided and fragmented because we're living our lives on our screens and not in the real world. Okay. So that's why I've made my decision.
Well, you make your argument very powerfully, Olivia. Now, we've not got long, so I want you all to be brief. I'm going to come just quickly to the audience. Yes, there's a woman in the back with a blue sweater on. Do you see in the middle there? Yes, let's hear from you.
Hi, so I wholeheartedly agree with what Australia is proposing, purely because it concerns me when I see, I mean, you can't help it, but see mothers out with really young children and all they're doing is looking on iPads. And I mean, I'm not much older than the woman who asked the question, and even I feel afraid of what this does to young people. And being through university and meeting people who have grown up in the 2000s, and their effect on their mental health is unbelievable compared to some of my peers.
OK, let's hit the man here in the glasses.
I'm a teacher, and so I see this firsthand every day. I totally agree it should be banned for under-16s. I work in an infant school, and some of the things we hear on a daily basis is quite scary.
Like what?
Some of the things they will see in videos, there's a character called Huggy Wuggy, for instance, who scares children. It gives them nightmares, and they pop up in YouTube videos. And having to deal with that on a daily, not a daily basis, but around the country, it's dealt with daily. It's pretty scary. And I was just going to say that I've noticed in my short career of teaching, children's attention span has significantly reduced. It's really hard to do my job when the children can't listen for more than 5 minutes or need some sort of video portrayed in a YouTube-y way to be able to teach them.
I would say, so you're all going to have to be pretty brief. Greg?
I worry about it enormously. I've got 2 sons. The interesting thing, one's 18, and he navigates this world better than almost any adult I know. He's almost immune to the adrenaline rush of notifications, and he identifies misinformation actually far more quickly and ably than either me or some of my older relatives who post a lot of it on social media. And so I think it's a really complicated space because it's the world they're going to grow up into. And we've also got to work out at some point, how do you segue them into that world? And my younger son, he's 8, I wake up some mornings and he's watching YouTube, but he's largely watching videos about, football. And the moment you put a football in his hand, he runs outside and plays with it. And I think it's really hard for us to characterise the impact it has. So I think the social media companies behaved incredibly irresponsibly when they built the algorithms. when they identified that
But do you
Discord...
agree, Greg, just quickly, because we've got so little time, do you agree with the Australian approach, banning them for under 16?
I think we need to have a more sensible approach, because you don't want to get to the age of 16 and suddenly be exposed to it.
All right.
We've got to learn to navigate.
Tim, yeah, if you really agree. Good.
Since 2012, tragically, rates of suicide, depression and self-harm among young people have gone up enormously. It correlates to the availability of smartphones. Something like 97% of adolescents in this country have access to a smartphone. It's estimated that around half of all 9-year-olds are on social media. There's a clear link. Government should ban it. If you knew there was some kind of toxin in the air that was damaging and harming young people's mental health in that way, you would want to do something about it.
Okay.
China's leading the way on this with things like TikTok. In China, young people can't use it for more than about an hour, and the government determines what kind of content is put out there. Not only would I ban social media use for young people...
There's obviously political censorship on
well, no, I mean, they
skew
skew the content towards educational and stuff like that. I think the day will come when you buy a smartphone, like a pack of cigarettes, there's a health warning on it. Because it does harm your health.
Ellie, is it the Australian example particularly, is that something the Green Party would support?
I think it's a great question, Olivia, and you articulated your concerns really clearly, and I honestly share them. I think banning it's a really strong policy. I've visited a school recently where they'd banned the use of smartphones within the school. It was joint secondary and primary school, and I personally completely agree with that. I think the workability and the justification of completely banning social media for young people is something that needs a bit more conversation, to be perfectly honest. But what I do think is we need far better regulation of social media, especially legal but harmful content.
Damien. Yeah. So, I mean, Australia is absolutely going out on a limb here. I mean, no other country's done it.
No, I think everyone's starting to talk about things. Everyone's starting to talk about
whether they'll do it
like
and quite how it will work. So but in theory, in principle, rather, do you support it?
Yeah, look, a big issue we've got here is parents' FOMO. Because you don't want your child to be the only one in class who's not on the system. And for good reason. It was like when we were kids, the one kid in class who didn't have a television couldn't talk about Top of the Pops on a Friday morning. It's the same kind of thing.
That ages you.
But if you...
And me, I used to watch it.
Yeah, I started singing the theme tune. But if you ask children, there was a big survey that said to children, if you could turn off social media, not just for you, but for everyone else in the world, like your mum and dad included, and all grown-ups and all your friends, would you do it? And an extraordinarily high proportion, not a majority, but a really surprisingly high proportion say yes. And that is, I think, that's the debate we need to get to. There's a private members' bill coming up in Parliament next year, early next year. We'll see exactly where it ends up.
Yes,
but we have to have this national debate, because our friend in the audience there, the teacher, I mean, all of those things you made, you could have added sleep.
Okay. Let me get to Jonathan, or we're going to run out of time.
Not having enough.
There is a private members' bill coming. It is not going anything like as far as what the Australian government is talking about. So let's just talk specifically about that. Is that something that your government could see
Look, I'd have to know more about the specific proposal, but I share a lot of the concerns that Olivia has put in the audience has put out. Greg's point about the algorithm, how young minds are kind of moulded by it, is definitely a concern. I'd say as well, since the election, since becoming a cabinet minister, I'm basically too busy to personally monitor my own social media. Apologies if that sort of offends anyone who thinks I'm there at every minute on it. But honestly, I feel more productive. I feel happier. I feel I get more done. I'm focused on what matters. I'm more with my family rather than checking my Twitter app, which I used to do as an MP, to be honest, every 5 to 10 minutes.
So then is this a role for government?
I think it's a bigger conversation that is required, and as ever, you're looking at kind of effectiveness and how will that work. But the kind of concerns we're seeing across a whole set of people here, I think is a conversation, not just in our country, but in lots of places, we're increasingly going to have. I think it can do a lot of good as well, by the way. I think, modern communications have a great role to play, and tech innovation is really important. So you've got to get that balance right. But you can see the reaction in the audience here to this question.
And I have to say, it's something that gets discussed a lot on this programme. And given what the Australian government's doing, I suspect we'll revisit it. For now, I'm afraid we are out of time. That is all for this week. Thank you very much to the panel.
Thank you.
To the audience here in Basingstoke. Thank you to you at home for watching. Next week, Trowbridge in Wiltshire. See you there. Bye-bye.